haunting of Barren Hollow. In the small, dismal town of Barren Hollow, the air was thick with a fog that never seemed to lift. It was a haunting place, filled with whispers of the strange and supernatural. For over 2 eerie years, followers of Damien Thorne had grown increasingly devoted to the enigmatic figure who claimed to possess powers beyond any earthly understanding. As Mark sat down at his rickety wooden desk, the chair creaked beneath him, echoing the ominous sounds of the town. He gazed out the cracked window, remembering how Barren Hollow had changed, transformed into a ghostly shadow of its former self. Dark rumors swirled around Damien, whose charm and charisma held sway over the increasingly unstable community. The local newspaper had recently published a feature about him, delving deeply into the mystique surrounding his unholy gatherings. Opening the newspaper, the headline sent chills down Mark's spine: "The Prophet of Darkness, Damien Thorne." The accompanying image depicted Damien in a pristine white robe that stood stark against the dilapidation of Barren Hollow. With a long beard that seemed to twist like a serpent, he sat at a dark, creaking oak table with an unsettling aura of serenity surrounding him. The photograph caught his gaze, his pupils reflecting a maddening fervor, as if he was the very embodiment of despair. The article contained an interview that Mark had memorized for its sheer horror. A journalist had approached Damien with caution, the chilling tone of the conversation chillingly familiar to Mark. "What is the essence of your belief?" the reporter had asked nervously. Damien, with a smile that sent a shiver up Mark's spine, replied smoothly, "What I pursue is not a religion, but a faith that transcends the mortal plane. I am merely a guide, a vessel for the truth that lurks in the darkness." Mark could imagine the journalist intensifying his questions, but all he heard were the ominous echoes of Damien's doctrine. "We honor the ancient spirits that birthed this land, for Barren Hollow was once a realm of shadows, cursed and forgotten." As he continued reading, Mark clenched the newspaper, imagining the ghostly whispers of the townsfolk who had vanished mysteriously, souls claimed by Damien's ominous teachings. One former resident, Evelyn, a bright spirit, had been another casualty of Damien's influence. She had once painted vibrant scenes of life in Barren Hollow but now faded into the darkness, her art left unfinished on the walls of her damp, abandoned house. Dread clutched at Mark's heart as he remembered the disappearance of Evelyn's husband, James, who had succumbed to the allure of the prophet 5 nights before his wife vanished. The townspeople said they saw the couple at a ritual, an unsanctioned gathering shrouded in eerie light, where the air was thick with incense and the chilling chant of Damien's followers drowned out all reason. As if conjured by his thoughts, the voice of a ghostly figure echoed through Mark's mind. He could almost hear Evelyn's plaintive cry, begging for rescue. "Help us," the whisper wailed, a chorus of ghostly voices rising from the depths of his memories. They were all the same, the lost souls of Barren Hollow, forever intertwined with Damien's insidious teachings. Mark's mind raced as he formulated a plan to confront Damien Thorne and reveal the horror slithering beneath the surface. His research indicated that Damien had uncovered an ancient text, a grimoire that promised immense power, at a dreadful price. He had threatened to awaken something dark in the valley, a force that slumbered for eons, waiting to exact revenge on the unworthy. Summoning all the courage he could muster, Mark decided he would investigate Damien's secretive rituals. That night, he slipped into the shadows as the fog rolled in like an army of specters. The town square was devoid of life, the cobblestones glistening with dew and the moon casting an eerie glow. He found the gathering at the edge of the forest, where Damien stood, surrounded by his loyal followers, faces obscured in shadows. A large, grotesque effigy loomed in the center, exuding an unsettling mixture of dread and reverence. Mark's blood ran icy as he caught a glimpse of a familiar face, a woman draped in a flowing garment. It was Evelyn, her expression blank, as if caught in a trance. "Join us in awakening the Ancient One." Damien's voice rose above the winds, a chorus of madness echoing in the trees. As he watched, Horrified, the followers began to chant, their voices merging into a sinister melody that resonated with the very fabric of Barren Hollow. Mark felt the ground tremble beneath him, the air thickening, electric with danger. Fingers trembling, Mark pulled out his flashlight and hesitated for a moment before directing the beam toward the effigy. The light revealed ghastly faces carved into the figure, mouths agape in eternal screams, and he stumbled backward as he realized their horrendous truth. The likenesses were of missing townsfolk, their souls trapped in this macabre construct. "Stop!" Mark cried, shattering the chant's rhythm. The followers turned to him, their faces a twisted mix of fury and surprise. Damien's eyes flickered with rage, and he raised his arms violently, dark energy swirling around him. "No one can defy the ancient order," he roared, and the air grew heavier with menace. Mark knew he was outnumbered and that he had to act quickly. He darted between the entranced followers, desperate to reach Evelyn. But as he grabbed her wrist, she fell toward him, her eyes vacant yet pleading. "Release her." Damien's voice snaked through the gathering like a serpent's hiss. The followers moved as one, closing in on him with unsettling precision. The darkness thickened, shadows rolled forward like a wave, seeking to embody him. In a moment of pure terror, Mark cast the flashlight to the ground, illuminating Damien in blinding light. The crowd recoiled as their prophet's features twisted grotesquely, revealing a maw lined with jagged teeth, whispering the curses of the forgotten beings that he had awakened. "Fool!" he howled, his voice a hellish growl. "Do you think you can fight the very darkness that has birthed this land?" Just as Mark felt defeat closing in, a glimmer of hope arose. He recalled the tales of those who had defied Damien, stories that danced through the fog. Evelyn, momentarily freed from her trance, whispered fiercely, "Your power is but an illusion." Together, they channeled their will against the oppressive darkness. The followers, momentarily stricken by doubt, hesitated, their belief flickering like dying embers. "Banish him," they cried, confusion swirling among their ranks. The shadows flickered, revealing the ghostly faces of the lost, appearing alongside Evelyn. "Remember us," whispered the shadows, their voices intertwining with Mark and Evelyn. In that heartbeat, the once stifling atmosphere grew lighter, filled with the cries of the forgotten demanding their release. Then, with a surge of bravery, Mark shouted, "You don't belong here, Damien. Your darkness has festered long enough." Light poured from the hearts of the gathered, illuminating Damien's twisted form, and in that moment, the unholy connection he had established shattered like glass. A terrible shriek escaped him as he dissolved into shadow, taking his darkness with him. But the battle wasn't over. As the remaining followers fell to their knees, the ground trembled again, a tremor from the depths of Barren Hollow that would awaken what lay beneath. Standing together, Mark and Evelyn invoked the stories, memories of resilience that the town had nearly forgotten. And with that invocation, the spirits rallied, claiming their freedom from Damien's grasp. As Damien's presence faded into nothingness, the effigy cracked and crumbled, releasing the lost souls trapped within. The ground trembled once more as the dark fog began to lift, revealing the dawn, a haunting but hopeful light. Mark and Evelyn, hand in hand, watched as the town began to awaken, the specters of the past merging with the first light of day. Barren Hollow had faced its darkness but had not succumbed. Together, they would rebuild, one story at a time, until the haunting refrain of the past no longer echoed through the streets. And thus, the story of Barren Hollow continued, a tale of shadows and light, forever etched in the fabric of the town's memory, a reminder that even in the darkest nights, hope could find a way to shine through. The Haunting of Ashwood Hollow. On a chilling autumn evening in the secluded town of Ashwood Hollow, the leaves rustled ominously, dancing to the tune of the chilling wind. The town's stillness was often disrupted only when the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the streets. Lena emerged from Dr. Thompson's dimly lit office, her heart heavy and her eyes clouded with tears. The news of her pregnancy was bittersweet. It was a girl. The weight of despair sunk deeper as she recalled David's anger, his violent outbursts, a volatile mixture of rage and regret. Just as she stepped outside, David stormed toward her, his breath heavy with alcohol. "What did the doctor say?" he barked, his voice echoing through the night. "It's a girl," she whispered, fearful of his response. His face morphed from anticipation to furious despair. "A girl again? What's wrong with you?" His hands gripped the ultrasound paper with rage, crumpling it into a ball and throwing it aside. The old rage stirred in David, and soon he vented his frustrations on Lena, leaving her with a burning slap across her face that echoed into the night. The tension escalated as they arrived home, where their daughters, Mia and Eliza, were frightened by the echoes of their mother's cries. David's anger spilled over as he yanked the girls' hair, taunting them mercilessly. "Call out for your mother. Let's see if she cares," he sneered. Panicking, Lena grabbed a broom and charged forward, bravery inflamed by the maternal instinct to protect her children. "David, let them go," she screamed, her voice cutting through the chilling air. A struggle ensued as she swung the broom at him in desperation. Their chaotic fight drew the attention of the neighbors. Just then, Finn, a bystander who had witnessed the torment, intervened. With powerful strides, he pushed David away, delivering a blow that sent David sprawling onto the floor, blood streaming down his face. Instead of fear, a strange sense of justice filled the air as the neighbors rallied to protect Lena and her daughters. But soon, the horizon grew darker with the arrival of the sheriff, Travis, who came to take David away. As David was dragged into the squad car, the chill of night whispered threats of revenge. "You think this is over?" he shouted, his voice echoing long after the car drove away. Left with the weight of her harrowing experience, Lena found solace in a small clinic where Rebecca, the kind nurse, observed the scars of abuse under her gentle touch. "Are you safe at home?" she asked, her eyes filled with compassion. But the darkness loomed. Cracks began to form in Lena's reality. Late at night, she felt icy fingers creeping over her skin. Shadows flitted across the walls, whispering secrets of wrath and revenge. In her dreams, ghostly figures appeared, women who had lost everything to men like David, warning her to escape. Lena resolved to break free. After gathering evidence of David's abuse with the nurse's help, she sought legal counsel, calling on Finn, who had offered his details on that fateful night. Serving as her lawyer, he stood firm against the tides of darkness that followed her. But Ashwood Hollow had its own stories, of those who had vanished, swallowed by shadows of the past. In every corner of town, whispers circulated about the haunted history of domestic violence, where the spirits of the wronged remained tethered to their torment. In the ominous town hall, where echoes of past trials lingered, Lena faced David one last time. The judgment rang through the air like a judgment day, a verdict that freed her but raised the specters of David's wrath. After the separation, Lena moved herself and her daughters into an old, abandoned cottage far from town, a place whispered to be haunted. As night fell, the shadows seemed more pronounced, pressing in on her with each breath. The ghostly figures began to manifest in the dark corners of the cottage, shimmering images of despair, those who had come before her, women who had succumbed to their fate. Determined to reclaim her life, Lena sought help from a local support group. She learned that the shadows in her mind were no match for the strength she found, supported by the voices of those who understood her plight. Together, they forged bonds that illuminated the dark, healing not just the wounds of their bodies but also the scars on their souls. Yet, David's wrath was relentless. He wreaked havoc, coming for Lena under the cloak of night, shadows by his side, a looming specter of despair. One stormy night, Lena and her daughters were drawn to a strange presence when the power went out. The echoes of ghostly cries merged with the storm outside. In a desperate bid to protect her daughters, Lena faced David, emboldened by the spirits of those who had suffered before her. In a confrontation laden with emotion, the walls shuddered, and the spirits arose, angry and tormented, to protect her. The room erupted into chaos, the ghosts swirling, compelling a final reckoning where Lena's bravery shone through the darkness. With a final plea, Lena invoked their strength, and the apparitions materialized, surrounding David. The spirits fused with Lena's strength, a luminous force pushing him back, leaving him to face the repercussions of his actions alone. In the wake of the storm, dawn broke, a new beginning for Lena, marked not by her past but by her resilience. The specters addressed her one last time, whispering words of encouragement before fading away into the light, leaving her to forge a new path forward. In the years that followed, Lena constructed a life filled with love and laughter for her daughters, raising them in a spirit of protection, strength, and awareness. Ashwood Hollow gradually healed, the shadows dissipating, but the memories of the past served as a reminder, a sacred testament to survival, where stories of courage whispered in every corner of the town, guarding against darkness. Lena became an advocate, empowering others to shed the weight of their chains, breathing hope into the lives of those still haunted. In the dusk of each evening, when the winds whispered through the trees, she could feel the gentle caress of the spirits who had stood by her side, always protecting, always guiding. And thus, in the heart of Ashwood Hollow, the tales of strength intertwined with the past, forever shaping the future, a haunting legacy of survival and rebirth, illuminated forevermore. The Haunting of Hollow Grove. In the chilling depths of the 13th year of the century's 6th decade, the remote land of Hollow Grove lay at the mercy of dark colonial powers, a place enshrouded in mystery and haunted by despair. The once vibrant town, now echoing with the whispers of shadows, endured a spectral grip that had transformed it into a nightmarish landscape. This ghostly realm, entwined with treacherous forests, lay hunched beneath the weight of ancient secrets and grim legends. Hollow Grove was a sinister expanse, where over 90% of its territory was cloaked in dense, primordial forests or blanketed by fields of ghostly grasses that towered over passers-by. It was not merely the haunting beauty of the land that sent shivers down the spine of any intruder, but the whispered tales of those who came before, tinged with the echoes of untold horror. Legend spoke of a time when the first settlers stumbled upon the cursed expanse of Hollow Grove, seeing only desolation and decay among the skeletal peaks of limestone. The very air they breathed was heavy with foreboding, and the ground itself seemed to throb as if alive with the souls of the lost. Yet, one fateful day, from a gaping maw of darkness, emerged a celestial figure, a god of old, whose pity suffocated the settlers. In a terrifying twist, this deity twisted into the form of a colossal shadowy serpent, its length coiling through the valley, swallowing the light whole. The rains came, as if summoned by the horrified screams of nature itself, drenching Hollow Grove for days on end. In a grotesque parody of life, the land bloomed, but it was a false dawn. Amidst this rebirth, whispers of madness spread like wildfire. The villagers, who found momentary solace from the plague of drought and despair, soon realized that the god's blessing was but a curse, and the true spirits of the grove lingered in the shadows. As the eerie peace settled, Hollow Grove became a shunned place of gathering. It drew the attention of warlords and marauders, then the intruding forces, the foreign devils, seeking to exploit the land's ghastly bounty. They established plantations and schools, their presence suffocating the remnants of ancient spirituality that once guarded the land. Yet, as the seasons turned, Hollow Grove became a crypt of vice, addiction thrived along with gambling, and depravity was commonplace, long forgotten in the eyes of the ever-watching spirits. One man, Prade, the town councilman, a figure both feared and respected, sat brooding in the musty chambers of the abandoned town hall, poring over the registry of the damned. Names written in faded ink told tales of lives unfamiliar, souls who wandered too close to the ghastly heart of Hollow Grove. His eyes, sunken and hollow, reflected the weight of the treacherous past. As he closed the creaking ledger, a sudden chill danced across the room, pulling him from his stupor. The walls seemed to whisper in a language lost to time, and dread seeped into his bones. Prade staggered outside, compelled by an unseen force, a paralyzing urge to face whatever darkness had settled upon the town. The shadows deepened as he lit a crooked pipe, its smoke curling, almost sentient. He stepped into the daylight, yet the sun felt feeble against the oppressive ambience. The townsfolk, their faces etched with scars of a hard life, ambled through the streets, unaware of the malevolent whispers that reminded them of their fate. It was a desolate existence, confined to these crumbling houses, where hope had long been buried beneath layers of despair. As he strolled the cracked pathways, he encountered a bent figure, a local elder, Mabel, whose eyes gleamed with hidden knowledge. With wrinkled hands, she offered her greeting. "Prade," she muttered, her voice trembling under the weight of a terrible burden, "it grows ghastly quiet today, doesn't it?" The shadows deepen. Fear threaded through her voice like a serpent. Somehow, they both sensed the gathering storm, a creeping dread that gnawed at their sanity. "Where are your children, Mabel?" Prade forced himself to ask, dread pooling in his gut. "They follow the whispers of the serpent of Hollow Grove," she replied, her voice barely a flutter against the mounting winds. They seek the ancient grove where our God once breathed life into this wretched land. They believe salvation lies in the dark, in the embrace of the whispers. The councilman's heart raced. He knew what lay in the depths of the grove. It was not divine but rather the taste of madness. You must stop them. Prade's voice cracked, desperation clawing at him. But the old woman faltered, her eyes widening with fear. To go against the will of the serpent is to invite its wrath. You mustn't venture there, no one returns who does. The air crackled, charged with a heavy foreboding as night slowly fell upon Hollow Grove, dragging its veil of darkness. Shadows danced beneath the pale moonlight, twisting and curling like the whispers of the damned. Prade felt the suffocating grip of dread but could not turn away from the affair unraveling before him. As the clock struck midnight, the town erupted in mournful screams. The children, drawn to the forbidden grove, began their descent into madness, sharing tales of their impending doom. Their eyes glossed over, haunted by visions unseen. Prade knew he could not lose them to the serpent's allure, not when darkness gripped the town tighter each moment. An agonizing decision loomed before him. Driven by an instinct to protect, he steeled himself and embarked on a ghostly journey through the heart of the foreboding forest. He had to confront the malevolent spirit that lingered there, the very essence of their plight. With each step into the abyss, the whispers escalated into maddening screams that clawed at his sanity. It was a dark carnival where shadows twisted and tongue-lashed towards him, promising power in exchange for companionship. Join us, Prade, they beckoned, the serpent will show you visions of greatness. Succumb, and your struggles will end. But Prade could feel the burden of every soul that had gone astray in this accursed grove. The chilling realization that they had all summoned a fate worse than death struck him. He would not let his fears dictate the fate of the children or the township. Venturing deeper, he caught sight of the moonlit clearing where the serpent of Hollow Grove coiled, an abyss of darkness dripping with ancestral tears. The specter of the deity, once revered, drooped low, insidiously inviting the innocent near. "What do you desire, mortal?" it hissed, its voice reverberating through the marrow of his bones, as if it had come from the depths of the earth itself. "Release them. Their lives are not yours to take," Prade shouted defiantly, recognizing the vile trap of despair cloaked in the facade of benevolence. A ferocious wind howled, shaking the marrow within him. The serpent laughed, a cacophony of chilling sounds. "Should you resist, then you will join them, and soon all will be mine." A climactic showdown erupted as the anguished spirits of the past rose to the surface, echoing the search for redemption. Prade summoned every ounce of courage, fueled by the love for his children and an undying resolve to protect them from the darkness that threatened to consume Hollow Grove. The battle transcended that cursed grove, a clash of will against despair. A blinding light erupted, and in the fierce struggle, Prade could feel the world tipping, souls intertwining in a whirlwind of anguish. Moments turned to eternity, and just as despair threatened to overwhelm him, he channeled the very lifeblood of his people, a connection through generations lost. He cried out for emancipation from the sins of the past and summoned the strength of 100 spirits, erupting into a vortex of light that pierced through the veil of darkness. A devastating roar erupted from the serpent, a crescendo that shook the very core of the woods. Shadows vibrated and twisted, ultimately fighting their way back into the embrace of oblivion. Prade stood at the heart of it all, unfaltering, unyielding. With one final surge, the children of Hollow Grove, their spirits brightening through the darkness, coalesced in unity, echoing his resolve. Together, they shattered the veil that shackled the town, banishing the ghostly thing that had held them captive for far too long. As dawn broke over Hollow Grove, light poured into the suffering hearts of the townsfolk who had stood on the periphery of despair. Restoration brewed with every ray. The haunting echoes fell silent, replaced with the soft rustle of leaves and the quiet laughter of children once more, though caution lingered in their spirits. Though scars would remain in Hollow Grove, hope flickered amidst the specters of the past. The memories of those lost served as reminders of the price of surrendering to despair. Prayed, forever changed, bore the sigils of battle on his weary frame. The shadows would never fully dissipate, but in their wake, they birthed a renewed sense of vigilance, a covenant to safeguard the heart of Hollow Grove against the eternal night that cloaked their world. And so, the legend grew, a ghost story entwined with the roots of resurrection, cautioning all who dared wander too close. The darkness may call, but the light of remembrance forever endures. Shadows of Eldergrove. In the year 2005, in the small, desolate town of Eldergrove, a chilling tale unfurled as a young boy named Jason approached the fateful summer he would never forget. The news had arrived from his distant relatives. Uncle Harold had succumbed to a long battle with liver cancer. Jason could hardly remember the last time he had seen Uncle Harold. Distance had separated them for years, and the boy's infrequent visits to Eldergrove had faded the man into a mere silhouette of memory. However, Jason recalled, with a shiver, the way Uncle Harold had consumed alcohol like it was water, the bottle ever present at family dinners around the worn wooden table. On the day of Uncle Harold's funeral, the air was thick with a foreboding unease. A band of ghosts seemed to hang around the edges of the town, their whispers mingling with the rustling leaves. Jason's family began their journey to Eldergrove in a dull gray sedan, which seemed to clatter nervously along the pockmarked roads. With his father, Aunt Miriam, grandmother, and Jason packing themselves into the car, they were lulled into a tension-filled silence, broken only by the occasional conversation about the late uncle. Upon arrival at the dimly lit funeral home, barely past noon, the sight was haunting. The remnants of life echoed eerily within the walls, with hardly anyone around, save for a few mourners performing their hushed duties. Jason shivered as he was pulled into the shadowy atmosphere, a stark contrast to the vibrant energy of his childhood days spent playing in the fields. As the family began to prepare, Aunt Miriam took charge of organizing the arrangements, while Jason's grandmother wept quietly in a corner. Jason found himself detached from the sorrow around him, consumed instead by a strange sense of curiosity urging him to explore. The old house that belonged to Uncle Harold had a peculiar charm, equipped with peeling wallpaper and worn wooden floors that creaked underfoot. Jason stepped outside to escape the gloom and wandered into the surrounding woods. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying foliage, but he was drawn toward a hill at the rear of the property, where he and the neighborhood children had played games of hide and seek. As he ascended, a sudden chill swept through the air, raising the hair on the back of his neck. Near the top, he spotted a figure. It stood there, dressed in shadowy garments, a broad-brimmed hat casting a veil over its face. Jason hesitated, recalling tales of the Wraith of Eldergrove, a legend whispered among local children. But curiosity triumphed fear, and he called out, "Excuse me." His voice echoed back, unanswered, as he approached. The figure remained still, its back turned, facing the dense thicket ahead. The hill lowered gently, making his approach awkward as his legs felt like they were trudging through mud. Seconds turned to minutes as he grew frustrated, feeling as if he was wading through an invisible force preventing him from getting closer. Suddenly, it was gone. Confused and weary, he made his way back down to the funeral home. That night, as the family gathered for a meager meal, Jason felt an overwhelming sense of dread swirl around him. Only the grieving echo of his grandmother's weeping broke through the silence, seeming almost like the cries of lost souls. They all settled down for the night, shadows pooling in corners, the creaks of the old house intensifying the atmosphere. Jason found himself sharing a room with his grandmother to provide her comfort. Sleep evaded him, and when he finally drifted off, it was a restless sleep filled with twisted dreams. He awoke to a bone-chilling cold enveloping the room. Turning slowly, he faced the window where moonlight streamed in like ghostly fingers illuminating dark corners. That's when he saw her. A dark figure floated into view, emerging from the moonlight, a woman cloaked in shadow, her face obscured beneath a tattered scarf. She carried a strange basket, almost like a woven coffin for a child. The sight made his heart race with terror. She moved silently, drifting past his grandmother as though she was invisible to her, gliding toward the hallway. Jason wanted to scream but was too terrified to make a sound. Behind the figure, he thought he saw a small child barely visible, its face unnaturally pale, an empty void where features should have been. The woman paused near the door, as if ensuring Jason was still watching, and then drifted outside through the walls. His heart raced faster than ever as a primal instinct kicked in. He followed her, stepping lightly to avoid waking his grandmother. Outside, the world felt different. The shadows were dancing in the moonlight, breathing and swirling around him, pulling him towards the old well at the edge of the property. As he approached, he felt a cold rush. The air thickened, and images flooded his mind. Glimpses of the past filled him with dread. The chilling realization struck him: Uncle Harold's heavy drinking may not have been a simple vice. It might have awakened the sinister forces that dwelled within this land, and now, like the ghosts tethered to the sorrow of the living, they were hunting for release. Hours seemed to pass, and the haunting cries of children echoed around him. Then, Jason's eyes were drawn to the well, an ancient structure draped in overgrown vines and thick moss. It seemed to beckon him closer, whispering secrets of despair buried within the depths. Trembling, he inched forward, the pull of darkness heavy upon him. Suddenly, from the shadows, figures began to emerge, those of lost souls, their faces twisted in sorrow, reaching out with bony fingers. Jason's breath hitched in his throat as he realized they were the countless spirits of those who had perished in the town, loved ones lost, victims of the well's dark history. Drawing back, he stumbled, tripping over his feet as he felt them closing in. In a moment of sheer terror, he turned and bolted, racing through the woods back towards the house, the spirits trailing him with mournful wails. He reached the safety of the house and slammed the door shut, his heart pounding in his chest. What followed was a desperate night filled with shadows creeping through the edges of his vision. Jason barely slept, haunted by visions of that woman with the empty child. Hours dragged on as he faced the horrors that blighted Eldergrove. The whispers of the past grew louder, and the spirits cried for release. As dawn broke, Jason's family slowly woke to find him in a state of shock. With a trembling voice, he recounted his chilling night. No one believed him at first. Aunt Miriam scolded him for conjuring ghost stories at a time of mourning. But as he described the woman, their expressions began to shift. The elders of the town gathered soon, weary faces reflecting the years of silence around the well. They recounted terrible tales of the past, how happiness had been stolen from them, leaving only grief. One elderly man stepped forth, nodding gravely. a twist of fate had ensured that Uncle Harold's fate was tied to the very sins of Eldergrove. And so, the boy unwittingly became the vessel through which the town confronted its legacy of sorrow. They performed a ritual to lay the spirits to rest once and for all, a ritual of remembrance, forgiveness, and freedom, the only way to uncover the truth hidden within the darkness and the whispers echoing through Eldergrove. In the aftermath, the shadows of Eldergrove receded, but the echoes of that haunted summer lingered. Jason learned that darkness never truly disappears. It merely waits until the sun sets once more, always lurking in the periphery, reminding us that every tale has a haunting. From that day forward, Eldergrove stood still, a town poised between light and shadow, forever marked by the hauntings of its past, a legacy entwined in the very fabric of the souls who dwelled there. And on quiet nights, if you listen closely, you can still hear the whispers carried on the wind, urging the living to remember. The Cursed Valley of Eldergrove. In a forgotten corner of the world lay the eerie village of Eldergrove, a place draped in shadows and whispered secrets. This village, long after the fires of war had scorched the earth, stood unyielding in its sorrowful beauty. Its tranquility belied an underlying current of grief and despair. Its people were as steadfast as the ancient trees shadowing their homes, enduring hardships with a resolve born of countless generations. Yet, the very resilience that defined Eldergrove also pushed its youth away in search of prosperity. Among them was a man known as Nathaniel, or Nate as villagers fondly called him. At just over 30, Nate seemed out of place, left to shoulder a burden of loneliness, having lost his parents to illness and grief at a tender age. He toiled alone in the fields, struggling against the odds of a land that bore little fruit. One overcast afternoon, as Nate walked home from harvest, he encountered a familiar specter from his past, his cousin Oliver. Time had transformed Oliver, wealth had brushed his ragged edges, but it had also cloaked him in an unsettling aura. Shadows seemed to cling to him, and a sinister gleam sparkled in his eyes. "Why so grim, Nate?" Oliver's voice echoed like the wind rustling through the dead leaves. "Hi, Oliver. You look different," Nate replied, a chill creeping up his spine. "Different? I've ventured beyond Eldergrove. This village wallows in its clutches of poverty," Oliver laughed, a sound that resonated with something darker, something unholy. "Come, join me. I promise you, life outside is brimming with opportunities." Nate hesitated, caught between loyalty to his roots and the allure of a more abundant life. Finally, he agreed, and Oliver assured him the journey would begin in 2 days' time. 2 days melded into the next, and Nate stood at Oliver's doorstep, clutching a tattered burlap sack with little more than memories and dreams within. After a quick farewell with the handful of villagers still lingering around, he followed Oliver towards an unknown fate. The sun dipped beneath the mountains as they made their way, but Nate felt an unshakable chill seep into his bones. A dilapidated vehicle rather grimly whisked them away from the last remnants of Eldergrove. The terrain transformed around him, shifting from humble cottages to a labyrinth of trees that seemed to leer at him from either side. Occasionally, Nate glimpsed twisted shapes lurking within the foliage, shadows that danced and then vanished. Finally, the vehicle ground to a halt in an uncharted wilderness. Littered with the remnants of choked underbrush, Nate felt the unease tighten its grip. The forest whispered secrets, beckoning him to turn back. "Where are we?" Nate's voice trembled as he glanced around, eyes wide with fright. "Welcome to our new home, the Eldergrove Mines," Oliver whispered, the shadows flickering on his face like phantom flames. "Your work begins tomorrow, but tonight, we celebrate." Making their way through the haunting forest, they arrived at a decrepit cabin barely standing amidst centuries-old trees. Inside, miners gathered around a pitiful table. As the darkness deepened outside, the warmth of camaraderie fluttered about the room. A meal was laid out, but it felt served with a potent sense of foreboding. However, the beats of laughter soon faded as whispers of unease began to echo through the creaking wood. Conversations about strange occurrences, unsettling sightings, and odd sounds in the night hushed abruptly as Nate entered. "Who's the newcomer?" a rough voice called from the back. Nate's heart raced as he scanned the room. All attention turned to him, shadows falling across faces painted with unease. "I'm Nate. I've come to work with Oliver," he stammered, forcing a smile. "Work?" "Here," laughed a miner named Gerald, his laugh turning into a cough. More like tread carefully beneath their gaze. "Who?" Nate questioned, feeling inexplicably drawn to the fears of the miners. "The lost ones," murmured another voice. "The ones who never made it out. They're the echoes in those woods." Nate's stomach twisted with a sense of dread as their words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The atmosphere shifted like the wind, and Nate's unease returned tenfold when a series of bizarre thuds echoed from outside, drawing a collective breath from everyone. "Just the trees having their say," Oliver smirked. Yet Nate could sense the tension ripple through the room. The night wore on, and with it came a growing sense of restlessness. Exhausted yet unable to sleep, Nate lay in his tiny corner of the rough cabin. Shadows flickered outside the rickety walls as the wind howled an unfamiliar tune, leaving him wide-eyed and anxious. Just before dawn, an unsettling howl pierced the silence. Nate bolted upright, every instinct telling him something loomed just beyond the periphery of his reality. He pushed himself to the cabin door, intrigued despite the terror writ large across his heart. Stepping outside, the moon bathed the mine in an ethereal glow, revealing a gaping pit where machinery stood silent. Cautiously, Nate approached it, a strange compulsion pulling him closer. But when he looked down, he saw murky water bubbling ominously, and the thumping sound grew louder, a spectral rhythm resonating with the heartbeat of something ancient and furious. Nate staggered back, fear gripping him tighter than ever. "What is this place?" he murmured aloud. "Your truth is rooted in the earth," a voice hissed from behind him, chilling his bones. He turned to face the shadows pooling at the edge of the trees. "Run, Nate! It's here!" Oliver screamed from a distance, horror etched across his face. But before Nate could turn, the shadows surged forth, swirling around him, filling his lungs with an otherworldly dread. In moments, he found himself face to face with something incomprehensible, figures silhouetted in the moonlight, lost souls eternally tied to the mines, eyes glimmering with desolation. A cacophony of cries echoed through the forest, merging into a singular ghostly wail, a symphony of souls forgotten by time, long buried yet endlessly restless. Nate struggled against the pull of darkness, the memory of Eldergrove fading, but a faint hope ignited within him. "Stop!" he shouted, feeling the strength of his roots. "I am no longer bound to your despair." The surroundings ceased their chaos, the haunted figures halted, their faces morphing into expressions of curiosity. "Release us, or forever lose your soul in darkness," a voice roared, striking despair into Nate's heart. Summoning every ounce of courage, Nate stepped forward. "I cannot set you free, but I promise to remember you. Your stories will live on through me. I will tell the world of Eldergrove, of your pain, and the love that birthed you." A silence fell, heavy as a shroud. The restless spirits hovered before him, their gazes piercing into his heart. Finally, the air shifted, the evil calling now diminished. Perhaps, a voice emerged from the shadows, softer than before. "Perhaps we need not be alone. Our tales can echo through you, and the cycle need not continue." As dawn broke, the forest began to show signs of life. Birds sang their morning chorus, and the light pierced through the fog. The shadows around Nate receded, releasing him, allowing him to breathe once again. Over the following days, Nate found himself fascinated by the stories painted on the walls of the cabin, memories etched in whispers of the villagers before him. He gradually pieced together the lore he uncovered, the haunting heritage of Eldergrove interwoven with the spirit of the mine. He returned to the village to share the tales of the lost, bridging the gap between their reality and his. Eldergrove transformed from a secluded village into a realm of collective remembrance, teaching love, resilience, and the importance of remembrance. But even as Nate worked tirelessly to honor those lost within the cursed valley, the shadows whispered their tales among the trees, an eternal reminder that some legacies would always linger in the gloom, waiting for a voice to set them free. And in the heart of Eldergrove, one could still hear the distant wails of the forest, the eternal lament of those trapped in the whispers of an untold past, reminding the living of the fine line they walked between light and shadow. The Haunting of Grimwood Hollow. In the eerie year of 1975, in the shadowy town of Grimwood Hollow, life appeared peaceful. But beneath the surface lay dark secrets, whispered increasingly among the townsfolk who dared not venture into the depths of the hollow. Young Samuel, an adventurous boy with an unquenchable thirst for exploration, found himself intrigued by the tales that danced on the lips of the villagers. Samuel's mother, Margaret, had always warned him never to wander far from home. "Stay close to the light, Sam. You don't want to awaken the spirits of Grimwood," she would say, her eyes filled with unspoken worry. And though he listened to her cautionary tales, the boy's curiosity triumphed over fear. One day, as dusk painted the sky in shades of indigo and violet, Samuel ventured deeper into the forest than he ever had before. Accompanied by his older siblings, Clara and James, they set out on a quest to find the old, rumored haunted cabin that lay hidden within the murky woods. Whispered stories indicated it was a place of malevolent spirits and, intriguingly, a cursed treasure. After swishing through thickets and narrowly avoiding brambles, they stumbled upon a foreboding clearing. There was the cabin, half-collapsed and overrun with skeletal trees that clawed at the sky. The wooden structure groaned under the weight of the years, unfurling an eerie ambience that penetrated their bones. "Let's go back," James stammered, but Samuel's eyes sparkled with defiance. "But what if we find something incredible?" he countered, his excitement quickly dismissing their concern for safety. As they stepped inside, the air thickened with a sense of dread. Shadows danced menacingly along the decaying walls, and a rancid smell enveloped them. Clara shivered, voicing her discomfort, but Samuel was undeterred. "Let's just look around a little longer," he urged. To their fright, they were not alone. Two phantoms emerged from the murky haze within the cabin. Ghostly and glazed, one specter carried an antique musket, while the other gripped a rusted dagger, clinging to that blade like a lover. "What insufferable brats dared to trespass?" the musket-wielding ghost roared, producing an echo of fear. Are we in danger?" Clara quaked, grabbing James's arm. "Desist," the dagger-wielder hissed, his voice draped in malice. "Grimwood has claimed many souls, and you may be next." The siblings were paralyzed with fear, unsure whether to flee or fight. Suddenly, a gust of wind rustled through the cabin, extinguishing their flickering lantern. Darkness engulfed them, and frantic whispers echoed around the room. "You should not have come here," the whispers taunted, wrapping cold fingers around their hearts. In that moment of blind panic, the oldest of them, James, remembered an old village saying, "To escape the Hollow's curse, you must ask the lost souls what they desire most." With trembling lips, he called out, "What do you want? How can we help you?" The phantoms froze in shock, exchanging glances as if sharing a secret communication only they understood. The musket-wielding ghost replied, "We seek redemption for our dark deeds. Free us from this wretched place." Their voices intertwined, pleading and demanding as the cabin seemed to shudder around them. Samuel, trembling but emboldening himself, proposed a daring plan. "If you share with us your tale, perhaps we can help you find peace." The specters hesitated, as their hollow eyes seemed to bore into his very soul. With heavy hearts, the ghosts began disclosing their tragic stories, twisted lives that ended with agonizing regrets. They had been innocent once, lured into darkness by greed and malevolence, ultimately leading to their demise at the hands of one another. The deeper Samuel listened, the more palpable the sorrow became, as if the cabin itself wept with them. As the tale wrapped around them like a dark shroud, Samuel, Clara, and James exchanged fearful glances. The spirits had once fought over a stash of cursed treasure, and their greed had damned them to this endless limbo. "If you help us find our lost treasure, we will release you," the ghost with the dagger demanded. Intrigued yet terrified, Samuel nodded. "Please, tell us where to find it." As the specters slowly revealed the location buried deep within Grimwood Hollow's cursed earth, the siblings knew they were entwined in something larger than themselves. Fear gripped their minds, but they embarked on the path the spirits outlined, an unforgiving journey marked by thick fog and unease. Samuel, Clara, and James clung together, determination propelling them forward as darkness encroached rapidly around them. What awaited them turned out to be a pit decorated with ghastly trinkets, bones twisted in unnatural shapes, remnants of the lost souls lingering in despair. And at the center lay a chest, ornately crafted yet cursed with a dark aura. The children pooled their courage and gently pried it open. Inside rested what appeared to be gold coins shimmering alluringly, yet the moment they touched the coins, the skies thundered, and a chilling scream echoed through the hollow, rending the air with fear. Suddenly engulfed in a whirlwind of spectral energy, they were suddenly transported back to the cabin, surrounded again by the two twisted figures. "Have you found it?" they clamored. "No. Nothing, but we can't let this cycle continue," Samuel shouted defiantly. "We must destroy the treasure and break your curse." Eyes wide with disbelief, the phantoms faltered. "Do you even know what you choose?" the musket wielder hissed, but Samuel stood firm, determined to end their suffering. With a sudden rush of resolve born from his youthful spirit, he thrust his hand toward the chest. "You are bound by your own darkness. But we will free you." In a single, powerful act of defiance, the three siblings slammed the chest shut and began chanting an incantation they'd read in the old tomes found in their village. The walls of the cabin warped and twisted as a blinding light erupted, engulfing the spectral forms and the cursed treasure. As the brilliance settled, quiet reclaimed the hollow, with the ghosts dissipating into peaceful whispers, grateful for their newfound solace. The siblings emerged, gasping and shaken, but free from the chains of Grimwood. Months passed since their ghastly experience in that haunted cabin. The aura surrounding Grimwood seemed lighter, the shadows less daunting. Yet in late autumn, on one particularly cold night, Samuel dreamt vividly of a friend he once had, a friend beckoning from the dark. "Aurora," he murmured in his sleep, recalling the mist laughter of the spirit whose haunting gaze had first sent chills down his spine. As he woke, a faint whisper echoed in his ears, "Thank you." Confused, he turned to find Clara by his side, struggling against restless dreams. Samuel knew the secrets of Grimwood Hollow would remain in the marrow of their bones, a dark memory forever intertwined with their childhood, binding them to the spirits who once haunted them. And though they escaped, the stories of Grimwood would always linger, urging future adventurers to remember that shadows hide far darker secrets beneath their veil. In Grimwood Hollow, danger still lurked, a warning to all who crossed its thresholds, for the spirits of the lost were always watching, and the echoes of their anguish would forever haunt the living. As for Samuel, Clara, and James, they learned one valuable lesson: the darkness carries tales worth telling, even if the cost is steep. The Haunting of Harrow Hill. Setting: Harrow Hill, a decaying town overshadowed by legends and haunted by its dark past. The events unfold in the winter of 1943, during a particularly eerie lantern festival, a time known for ghostly encounters. In the desolate town of Harrow Hill, long forgotten by the world, stood the crumbling ancestral home of the Merricks. Once proud figures in a flourishing district, the Merricks' lineage had dwindled, ending with Alastair Merrick, a shiftless man who relied heavily on the wealth inherited from his forebears. The family's fortune was overshadowed by a sinister past, one tied to the restless spirits of the land. As the Lantern Festival approached, whispers swirled among the townsfolk of Harrow Hill about a series of strange occurrences and chilling apparitions. Districts that had formerly celebrated their ancestors now grew silent, filled with trepidation. Instead of enjoying the festivities, the townspeople focused on warding away neglect that had plagued their heritage. One fateful evening, Alastair's wife, Eleanor, returned from a late evening at the town market. The narrow, overlooked path she traveled was cloaked in fog, thick and cloying. The only company she had was the distant sound of clattering hooves of a passing carriage. It was then that she felt it, a disquieting sensation that tugged at her very essence, pulling her attention toward the fields. Eleanor squinted into the mist, spotting a dark figure hovering amongst the wilted crops. As the chilling laughter rang out, echoing eerily, it sent shivers down her spine. The figure took on a human shape, indistinct and grotesque, an ethereal glow emanating from its eyes that pierced through the darkness. No, she thought desperately, and a surge of dread rushed through her, forcing her to turn her gaze away and quicken her pace. But just as her heart began to race, the laughter turned to a haunting wail. When she summoned the courage to look back, what she saw sent her reeling. The apparition had transformed into a gaunt visage of a man, one arm missing, swathed in tattered clothing. His skin was ashen, his eyes blood-red and incandescent. Then, with a raspy growl, he lunged forward, dragging his remaining limb along the ground toward her. In an instant, Eleanor tripped over her own feet and fell hard onto the cold gravel beneath her. The carriage driver rushed to her aid, but confusion twisted his features as he witnessed the apparition that haunted Eleanor. "Stay away," he urged, sensing the pressing heaviness of despair that enveloped the air. "Do you not see it?" Eleanor gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. "No, madam. There is nothing," he exclaimed nervously, but he too felt the chill of the air as if it bore a warning. As the fog thickened, it consumed the vision around them, enveloping them in darkness. When the veil finally lifted, the figure had vanished, leaving Eleanor shaken with an unshakable sense of dread that something was coming for her family. She returned home, hair disheveled, clothes muddied and the lingering scent of decay clinging to her skin. Upon entering the family's decaying household, she was greeted with the remnants of what should have been a warm family evening. Her husband, Alastair, sat in a disheveled state, his children Fern and Beaton watching him with worried expressions. The chaos in his mind was palpable. The absence of their patriarch had stripped him of purpose, a man clinging to fleeting remnants of authority. "What troubles you, Eleanor?" he inquired, noticing the slight tremor in her voice. "I saw something tonight, something sinister, Alastair," she whispered, not wanting to invoke an even darker presence by voicing the apparition aloud. "Perhaps you are weary." "It's merely shadows dancing in the night's embrace," he dismissed, though paranoia seeped into his own thoughts. But, as the days grew darker, so too did the occurrences begin to escalate. Each night, the specter would come closer, emerging from the same thin fog that heralded Eleanor's horror. Murmurs of discontent filled the household. Their children's laughter had vanished, leaving only an echo of shadows. They too had witnessed the figure in their dreams, his hollow voice calling them to join him beneath the earth. Desperation clutched at Alastair's heart, leading him to the local historian, Lilith Porter, a woman who prided herself on the town's blood-soaked tales. She spoke of the ancient bond woven into the land's fabric, a connection that tied them to the deceased ancestors who had perished in grotesque ways. Each had been cast into the graves but struggled to find peace. When the family of Merrick ceaselessly ignored their duty to honor the dead, the restless spirits began a vengeful uprising. "They'll bring misfortune if you don't repay your debts to those you forsook," Lilith warned, her eyes drawn, wide, as she recounted the tragedies of their family's past. the unholy and wrongful deaths that tainted their lineage with bloodshed. Desperate to end the horrifying nightmare, Alistair led his family to the long-abandoned cemetery where their ancestors lay buried. They sought to cleanse their family name, to atone for centuries of neglect. But as they dug up the overgrown roots, they uncovered something more sinister, a cursed relic, an effigy of a tormented spirit, tethering the lingering anguish to Harrow Hill. As night descended, the fog returned heavier than before, the specters rising from the earth like tendrils, enveloping the cemetery in a ghostly shroud. Alistair, panicking, looked around to find that one among them had been captured. It was as though the dark crafts of old were binding into the flesh of his family, greedy for their essence. Eleanor screamed as she hung on to her children, grasping at the thinning air. Roots and bones rose from the forgotten soil, twisting violently, pulling at the family. The whispers turned into wails, profound misery escaping the graves. The shadows of Harrow Hill would no longer remain dormant. What followed was a night of soul-searing torment, where the boundaries of life and death melted. Alistair fought against the dark powers with the remnants of his will, determined to save his family. But as the spirits cried, the whispers grew louder, each lost life added to the weight of their curse. In the haze of chaos, Eleanor could see them, families torn asunder, faces twisted in pain, all longing for release. They cried out for their young, for the ones who wandered too far or crossed the threshold of respect. With each heartbeat, she felt the pull of the dark entity threatening to drag them into the abyss, forever binding them to the haunted cycle of vengeance. In a final moment of desperation, Alistair began to chant an incantation he had learned from Lilith, one that spoke of redemption, of honoring the fallen. He grasped the effigy in hand, hoping to wrest away the power from the lingering spirits. It pulsed with rage, and in that instant, the light broke through the darkness. Eleanor, too, finding strength, declared her love for her family and begged mercy from those lost souls. United at that moment, they became a shield, a barrier of warmth against the chilling claws reaching for them. The spirits wailed, furious at being defied, yet the effigy shattered, sending a wave of ghostly light cascading through the cemetery. The roots receded, the whispers fading into silence, leaving Harrow Hill to exhale, freed at last from the weight of time. But the Merrick family was forever scarred, haunted by their past, living amidst the echoes of what had come before. Though they escaped that night, they knew better, that the ghosts of Harrow Hill would remain, watching, waiting. The Lantern Festival would come and go, but the shadows never lifted fully, reminding them they were never truly free. And so, in the dead of night, whispers still haunted the town, echoing the tales of the Merricks, a family tied to voices of the past, forever trapped in their sorrow. Their legend lived on, a chilling reminder of neglect and consequence waiting just beyond the veil. The Haunting of Mistwood Asylum. It was 10 p.m., and Xian Fuang was navigating the curvy roads of a forgotten valley in the desolate town of Mistwood. Her boyfriend, Jin, had vanished an hour earlier, swallowed by the oppressive darkness and heavy rain that lashed against her car. Thunder roared ominously, and the phone signal was non-existent. Every turn seemed to lead deeper into a nightmare, an illusion of safety turned hostile. Clenching the steering wheel, she pressed on through the chaos. Suddenly, a violent bang echoed as her car skidded and veered off the slick road, crashing into a tree. The jolt sent her head crashing against the wheel, a fresh wave of pain exploding in her temple. Blood trickled down her forehead, mingling with the rain, the metallic taste coating her mouth. Frantically, she reached for the first aid kit and bandaged the gash hastily, her heart thundering as she realized the gravity of her situation. The car was stuck, the tires sunk deep in the mud. In desperation, Xian Fuang grabbed her phone, cramming it into her jeans pocket before exiting into the storm. Wind whipped around her as lightning illuminated the chaotic landscape. The flimsy umbrella she held was torn away, rendering her vulnerable to the elements. As the rain lashed at her face, tears mingled with the downpour. She stumbled blindly, searching for light or salvation. The map she'd studied earlier was now useless, all sense of direction abandoned her. Yet, through the mesh of panic, a dim glow illuminated the darkness in the distance. She moved toward it, each step growing heavier, the mist enveloping her like a sinister shroud. After what felt like hours, exhaustion overwhelmed her, and she crouched beneath the gnarled branches of a tree, seeking shelter. Just as despair clutched at her heart, she noticed the glow ahead wasn't merely a figment of her imagination but a hazy, ghostly light, a portal of hope amidst the nightmares. Driven by instinct, she pressed on, breaking through the mist until she stumbled into an open clearing. Before her stood an imposing, dilapidated structure, the Mistwood Asylum. The building loomed sinisterly, windows flickering with sporadic, morose light. It had the charisma of a tortured soul, almost breathing with its dark history. With no other options, Xian Fuang approached the entrance emblazoned with the words, Mistwood Asylum. Despite her injury and soaked appearance, a flicker of relief surged within her. She pushed the door, which creaked open as if inviting her into its cold embrace. Inside, the air was frigid and stale, the rot of time resonating within the walls. "Is anyone there?" "I need help," she called, her voice echoing into the abyss. As if stirred from slumber, a shadow materialized in the reception area. Vance, a disheveled male nurse, his eyes clouded with exhaustion and dread. "Silence," he rasped, his voice dangerously low. "This place is sacred, keep your noise to a whisper." Taken aback, Xian Fuang stammered, "I had an accident. I need a doctor. I can't help you unless you're silent." The tone of his voice was icy, yet it struck her as something beyond mere warning, a decree. Suppressing her urge to scream, she followed him upstairs to a dimly lit room. There, a peculiar doctor named Dr. Wu sat with her back turned, absorbed in a task. As he turned, a chilling realization struck her. He wasn't simply examining documents. He was fixing a mirror with a maniacal obsession, frayed hair cascading over blank eyes devoid of warmth. Can you treat me?" she managed to ask, feeling the room tighten around her. Dr. Wu silenced her with a finger to his lips, his ghastly white countenance grinning unnaturally. The atmosphere weighed heavily, filled with apprehension. After injecting her with anesthetics and stitching her wound with a trained precision, he hummed an eerie tune, as if anchored in a realm of madness. "Pay at the desk," he pronounced, pushing her away coldly. Later, she approached Vance, yearning to settle the bill, but he sneered at her. "We don't accept cash," he drawled, enjoyment dancing in his eyes. Panic surged through her. Her phone was useless, its screen cracked and dead. "Dreadful news," he taunted, "your boyfriend? He's gone, lost like many before him." We don't offer assistance for free." The weight of his words struck her like a physical blow, and she demanded, "What do I have to do?" Vance smirked wickedly, "Survive the night and uncover the truth of the maniac hiding within these walls, a psychopathic murderer dressed in the garb of sanity." An icy chill raced down her spine. A maddening hunt awaited. "I'll do it. What's my reward?" "Find the killer before dawn, and we'll help you unearth your boyfriend's fate," Vance replied, the delight in his eyes growing darker. As Xian Fuang prepared herself for the task, dread clawed at her mind. Alone, without allies, trapped in a hospital filled with ghostly whispers, she followed the darkened hallways illuminated only by the erratic lights that flickered like dying hopes. With her heart pounding, she retraced her steps to Dr. Wu's office, her fingers clutching a scalpel and a paper knife, a semblance of weaponry. The chilling air filled her lungs as shadows danced around her, whispering of past horrors as she progressed deeper into the asylum. Before she could turn back, draped in silence and despair, a flash of white sped past her, stirring an insatiable curiosity. Her instincts screamed at her to flee, yet a morbid fascination compelled her forward, every whispered urgency drawing her deeper into a maze of terror. Drifting through the asylum, she encountered fragments of memories trapped within its forlorn walls, echoes of horrifying experiments, silhouettes of unfortunate patients, and the specters of those who perished within the confines of this madness. All the while, she sensed eyes upon her, shadows that spoke of an otherworldly menace. Who resided in this labyrinth of despair? Was it madness incarnate or something far more sinister? As she edged closer to the heart of the asylum, filled with a cocktail of terror and intrigue, a voice called to her, warm and soft yet chillingly distant. "Xian Fuang, find me before the morning heralds your doom." Pushing aside the effects of fear, she pressed onward, wielding her newfound weapons, driven by a flickering hope that perhaps, just perhaps, she could uncover the horrific truth and save her boyfriend, or discover the dreadful secret of Mistwood Asylum that held many souls in eternal torment. The Haunting of Whispering Pines. In the year 1981, nestled deep within the gnarled trees and misty valleys of a town called Whispering Pines, lived a woman named Evelyn Hart. She was known for her humble lifestyle, running a modest fruit stall in the market and caring for her 3 rambunctious grandchildren. Life was simple but filled with a warmth that enveloped their little home, nestled away from the bustling urban sprawl. One fateful evening, just as the clock struck 7, Evelyn's phone erupted with a haunting chime that echoed through the stillness. It was her business partner, Clara Voss, calling with urgency. "Evelyn, I need you to come. We've made an error in the accounting, and the goods are mislabeled." Clara's voice quivered with an unidentifiable sense of dread. "Right now?" Evelyn asked, glancing over her shoulder at her eldest granddaughter, Lila. "Yes, right away." Sensing the rising tension and the faint echo of something unnatural in the air, Evelyn sighed. "All right, I'll head over." Turning to Lila, she instructed, "Lila, make sure you and your cousins respect the rules I've laid down. Stay close to the house and don't wander off. Tonight is not a night for mischief, it's Lost Souls night, and the veil between our world and the next grows thinner." Lila nodded, but the mischievous glint in her eye suggested she wasn't particularly convinced. Evelyn mounted her motorcycle and sped off, leaving behind an uneasy silence in the house. She had long warned the children to avoid the woods and the abandoned paths nearby, for stories circulated in Whispering Pines about the lost souls that wandered during this time of year, seeking companionship in the shadows. Since the last harvest moon, tales echoed throughout the town of strange happenings, children disappearing, dark whispers in the night, and the feeling of unseen eyes watching. But Lila, emboldened by her youth, nodded to her brothers, Owen and Eli, "Come on, boys. Let's see what the world outside looks like during Lost Souls night." As the sun sank behind the horizon, the flickering streetlights barely pierced the growing darkness. The trio stepped cautiously into the eerie stillness, their playful banter masking the chill creeping up their spines. "Why is it so quiet?" Owen murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe everyone's scared to be out tonight," Lila replied, attempting to sound brave. But as they ventured deeper into the woods that bordered their home, the air turned frigid, and the familiar sounds of crickets fell silent, replaced by the echoing sound of wind rustling through the trees like hushed conversations. "Let's go back," Eli pleaded, his voice shaking. "What's wrong, scaredy cat?" Lila taunted, but even she felt the weight of an unseen presence pressing down upon them. Suddenly, Owen stumbled upon an old, dilapidated house, hidden behind twisted trees, blue moonlight illuminating its decaying facade. "Look! A haunted house." Against their better judgment, they approached, feeling an unsettling magnetic pull. The door creaked open as if inviting them in. "Do we dare?" Lila asked. With a mix of fear and curiosity, they entered. The air inside was heavy, laden with the scent of must and forgotten memories. As they stepped into the living room, an ancient chandelier hung askew, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the walls. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through them. They clawed at the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Maybe if we call for help," Owen stammered, but before he could say another word, the room filled with ghostly whispers, lost souls yearning for release. A shadowy figure drifted into view, a woman in a tattered dress, her eyes hollow and haunting. "Why have you come to my domain?" Her voice echoed with an otherworldly resonance. "We're just exploring." Lila stammered, heart racing. "Foolish children. This night is not to be trifled with," the apparition warned. "You seek adventure, but adventure seeks you. Your lives intertwine with those who've been lost. You must leave before the night consumes you." At that moment, the walls began to shimmer with visions of those who had come before, faces twisted in anguish, the cries of the lost filling the air. The temperature plummeted, visible breath escaping their lips as the ground beneath them trembled. With every beat of their hearts, the whispers grew louder, echoing their names, each syllable dripping with a chilling call into the void. Lila grasped her brothers. "Follow me." She threw herself against the door, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. They pushed, screamed, and willed the door to open. Miraculously, it groaned and swung open. They raced into the night, the darkness swirling around them like a living entity, the whispers now sounding almost desperate, though their feet barely touched the ground as they ran back towards the safety of their home. "Where's Grandma?" Lila gasped, scanning the empty spaces around her as they stumbled onto familiar ground. The moon hung high above, its light eerily bright yet casting shadows more pronounced than ever. Suddenly, they found Evelyn standing at the edge of the woods, her figure silhouetted against the moonlight. "You foolish children," she scolded with a mixture of relief and fear. "I was about to call the authorities." But as they approached her, the chill returned, more potent than before. Shadows flickered around Evelyn, and the whispers again filled the air, this time louder, pleading, an echo of sorrow and desperation. "Grandma! What's happening?" Lila cried, gripping her grandma's arm. "It's the night," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling as she pulled them close. "The veil is thin, and the spirits wander. We need to leave this place, now." But it was too late. The ground beneath them trembled, and figures materialized from the darkness, lost souls, dozens of them, their faces twisted in despair. "Join our ranks. Live among us," they cried in haunting unison, reaching for the children with spectral hands. "No. We won't." Lila screamed, blindly tugging her family back toward the path home as the spirits pressed forward, hungry for lives to reclaim. Evelyn, recalling ancient protective rituals, began chanting as she directed her grandchildren to the path home. "Stay close to me. Follow my lead." In a surge of panic, they ran towards their house, narrowly dodging grasping hands and echoing calls. Just when it seemed hopeless, Evelyn invoked the ancestors who had once protected this land, chanting with primal urgency. The air crackled with energy, and a fierce wind swept through the forest as if the very earth was fighting back. Suddenly, a blinding light engulfed the spirits. Their anguished cries morphed into wails of despair, and one by one, they were drawn back into the shadows, retreating into the endless night. With the last of their strength, Evelyn and the children burst through the door of their home, slamming it shut behind them. They collapsed to the floor, hearts pounding, eyes wide with terror. As silence returned, they lay still, realizing they had escaped the grips of lost souls' night. But even as they caught their breath, the specter of the haunting lingered. The whispers faded but left behind a chilling truth. The spirits of Whispering Pines would never forget, nor would they release their yearning for the living. In the days that followed, Lila, Owen, and Eli avoided the woods and their once beloved hideouts. But whispers in the night would haunt them, threads of the lost tugging at their consciences, reminding them that in Whispering Pines, one's curiosity could invite unseen horrors. And so, the children learned that the darkest shadows often hide the most chilling secrets, and some adventures were better left unexplored. The twilight of Whispering Pines. As the days turned into restless nights and the seasons shifted, whispers persisted and stretches of cold wind swept over Whispering Pines, forever tainted by the secrets of lost souls' night. They knew that somewhere, shadows waited, silently plotting the next generation's curiosity. Every year, when the moon was high and the veil between worlds was thin, the invocation of souls would become a tradition. Candles were lit, and rituals were performed, a precaution taught by Evelyn, echoing the ancient wisdom. Life is a gift and must be protected from the shadows that long for it. But the shadows had their own tales to tell, tales of vengeance and longing echoing through the ages, keeping the hearts of Whispering Pines forever vigilant, forever cautious, for darkness knows how to play the longest game. The haunting of Wraith River. It was the middle of October, a month known for its chilling gusts and eerie whispers that echoed through the dense woods. At the witching hour of 3 a.m., the banks of the small Wraith River were shrouded in a dense fog, each droplet from the previous night's rain glistening under the faint glow of the moon. The air was still, yet every slight rustle in the nearby underbrush sent shivers down one's spine, for something ancient and restless lingered just beyond the realms of the living. Amid the dense vegetation stood a lone boat, riddled with cracks and ghostly stains of past shadows. Within it sat a young man named Ethan, merely 26 years old, determined to cast his net into the dark, churning waters. With the moon illuminating his weary face, he had hoped for a bountiful catch to ease the struggles of life in the impoverished village of Misty Hollow, notorious for its tales of despair and forgotten souls. The river, while seemingly tranquil, had long been a vessel of horror and despair. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the spirits that roamed its depths, souls caught between two worlds, their pain mingling with the swirling tides overhead. Just a few months prior, Ethan had himself witnessed a haunting that still clawed at his mind with the cold grip of terror. On that fateful night, after the clock struck 1, the water surged ominously, dark clouds veiling the moonlight. Ignoring the warning signs, he paddled onward, his heart racing with hopes for a rich gathering. As he cast his net, he felt an unexpected weight, a resistance unlike any fish he had encountered before. He tugged at the line, anticipation bubbling up within him as he believed he had precisely what he hoped, a colossal fish. But to his horror, what emerged from the depths was not a creature to feast upon, but a lifeless infant, its pale skin gleaming like moonlit frost. It lay entrapped within his net, the tiny mouth stretched in an eternal, frozen scream. Under the lantern's flickering light, Ethan felt bile rise in his throat. The child's black, void-like eyes bore into him, an absurdly strange grin splitting its face, resonating with a chilling echo that danced upon his ears. The sound sent ice coursing through his veins. Panic surged through him, and yet in that moment, he steeled himself. He had grown somewhat accustomed to the spectral denizens of the Wraith River. Tales of wretches lost in madness and betrayal came to mind. He had heard whispers of a young woman, Celeste, who had wandered the riverbanks years ago, consumed by grief after abandoning her child. Her ghost, said to sing mournful lullabies, haunted the very waters he now drifted upon. "Please, I mean no harm," he stammered, desperately attempting to maintain his composure. "I only seek sustenance. I did not mean to disturb anyone." Almost as if obeying his words, the spectral infant ceased its haunting grin, its form suddenly dissolving, vanishing back into the water's depths. Though he felt some relief, an unsettling chill lingered, hanging over him like a cryptic warning. However, soon the rain lightened, allowing Ethan a few moments of solace. Just as hope began to bloom within him, he snagged a sizable fish amidst his nets, reveling in small triumph. "A decent catch," he whispered to himself. "If I could gather a few more, perhaps I could feast tonight." But a sudden gust of cold air whipped through the boat, snuffing out his brief joy. An ethereal melody drifted through the mist, touching his ears like a soft caress yet leaving a residue of dread. The lament of some forlorn spirit echoed around him, singing a grave nursery rhyme that spoke of love lost and children forsaken. "Come, come, hear the song of plight. For what's lost in shadows, wanders tonight. Lost are the dreams of mothers and kin. Through Wraith River's darkness, let the sorrow begin." Ethan's heart raced with desperation as he glimpsed a shadowy figure in the distance, the silhouette of a boat gliding against the current towards him. The melody wrapped around him, and he froze, realizing the figure belonged to a woman, her long hair flaring like a wisp of fog. With dread pooling in his stomach, he caught sight of her delicate profile, eerily wet and ghostly pale, adorned with tears like droplets of despair. As she sang, her gaze remained fixed upon him, unyielding, searching. He knew from tales long told that she was the embodiment of Celeste, the weeping mother whose anguish echoed throughout the riverbanks. "Flee!" a voice within screamed, but his body remained paralyzed by sheer terror. The river felt alive beneath him, a slumbering beast stirring, ready to strike. As she lazily drifted closer, her voice crescendoed, transforming into a cacophony of haunting despair that echoed within the depths of Ethan's mind. Each note a prayer turned litany, pulling at the edges of his sanity. "Help me find what was taken from me. Restore what was lost." Ethan felt himself lean over the side of the boat, drawn inexplicably to the depths, as if the answers lay at the bottom. The very air crackled with an electric anticipation, his plea lost within the tumultuous waves that surrounded him. Her hollow eyes held the depth of an abyss, where sorrow festered like lingering shadows drifting beneath the surface. His will subsiding, he aimed the oar, but as he lost control, the ethereal beauty morphed into a grotesque vision made of pure pain. Her mouth stretched impossibly wide, revealing jagged teeth and a gaping maw that swallowed the moonlight. "Cross the river to find me," she beckoned, the lilt of her song echoing like a siren in the air, sealing his fate. The proximity drained Ethan of hope. He could already feel the water tugging at him, ready to draw him into the dark embrace of the river. "No. I just wanted to catch fish," he roared, attempting to paddle away, but it was futile against the sheer pull of her lament. The heat, now a cold clutch against his heart, engulfed him, bringing the realization that he was not merely witnessing the past, he was entwined within it. She lunged forward, and in the brief seconds of horror that followed, Ethan found himself locked in a haunting embrace. The world around him surged into chaos, the haunting echo of her song colliding violently with the rush of the river. Darkness enveloped him, wrapping him in its cold fingers while the merest whisper of his existence faded into resounding silence. And so, the Wraith River continued to flow, endlessly beneath the waning moon, harboring tales of lost souls and the flesh that once wandered its banks. New fishermen came each night, casting their nets into its depths, unaware of the dreadful weight of their own fates intertwined with the sorrowful song. It was said that when the moon was full and the winds whispered, the cries of Ethan would join the haunting melody of Celeste, eternally echoing through the veil of night. The Curse of Legacy. Once upon a time, in a small village deep in the woods, there lived a woman named Granny Hattie. She was well aware of all the nefarious deeds carried out by Mr. Carter and his brutish assistant, Jack. Despite her gentle attempts to warn Mr. Carter about Jack, he dismissed her concerns time and again. As the days passed, Granny Hattie prayed fervently, hoping that fate would spare her daughter, Lily, from their sinister grasp. One fateful day, as Mr. Carter and Jack went about collecting taxes from villagers, they stumbled upon a couple blissfully unaware of their presence. Mr. Carter is just like his father was, nothing but a greedy tyrant. Since that brute Jack joined him, he's only worsened. No wonder he hasn't fathered a son, there's no one left to carry on their wretched legacy, remarked the husband, chuckling, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. At that moment, Mr. Carter and Jack emerged from the shadows, fury etched across Mr. Carter's bloodshot eyes. Without uttering a word, Jack lunged forward, wielding a wooden staff that crashed down mercilessly upon the husband and wife, silencing their cries before they could reach out for help. Fueled with rage, Jack seized a stone, pounding the husband's face repeatedly as he spat curses mingled with twisted glee. "Dare to speak ill of Mr. Carter? I'll make sure your ancestors won't recognize your faces in the afterlife." When it was over, their faces were unrecognizable. Gruesome remnants of life had faded away. Mr. Carter, now regaining his composure, looked down at the cruel scene before him, bewildered. You've killed them. What will we do now?" Jack, showing no sign of remorse, replied coldly, "They deserved it for cursing Mr. Carter. Don't worry. I'll clean this up. No one will ever know." With that, Jack procured 2 large sacks, stuffing the lifeless bodies inside before trudging to the nearby river, where he added stones for good measure before tossing the bags into the murky depths. "It's done, Mr. Carter." He turned back, smirking, "No one will ever find them. Tomorrow, we'll spread the rumor that they fled from you in fear of debt." Initially, Mr. Carter felt a chill at Jack's brutality, but as he listened to Jack's plan unfold, something dark ignited within him. Anyone daring to speak against him deserved a fate worse than death. As they walked away from the crime scene, Jack posed a curious question: "Why don't you just have another son? It'd ensure your legacy continues." Mr. Carter sighed, his expression dulled with resignation. "I wish I could, but the best doctors have told me I'm unable to father a child anymore. There's no remedy, it's hopeless." Jack, sensing an opportunity, pressed on. There are local shamans who claim they can treat ailments that even the best doctors cannot. Especially matters concerning children. They say it's highly effective. Uninterested, Mr. Carter retorted, I've never believed in such nonsense. They're just charlatans. But what do you have to lose? The best doctors have failed you. Perhaps you ought to try something new, urged Jack, his pleading voice dripping with manipulation. The shaman I know doesn't seek any payment, just good karma in return. It's genuinely harmless. Let me invite him to see you. Gradually, Mr. Carter acquiesced. Fine. Arrange for this shaman to visit. Perhaps desperate times call for desperate measures. The next morning, Jack left at dawn, returning 3 days later with a mysterious old man who appeared to be in his 50s. Dressed in tattered clothing, he wandered about curiously until his gaze fell upon Granny Hattie and her daughter, Lily, who were watching from the kitchen. A grin revealed his crooked, stained teeth, and he approached Mr. Carter with an air of mischief. Granny Hattie felt a shiver run down her spine as the shaman's gaze flickered between her and Lily, a knowing look in his eyes. Are you the wife and daughter of Mr. Carter? He inquired, voice low and menacing. Granny Hattie nodded hesitantly, while Mr. Carter, eager to hear the prognosis, interrupted, So, what do you see? Is there hope for me to have a son? After seeming to consider his words carefully, the shaman replied, You will have a son, but there is a catch. Your wife carries an immense dark energy that renders her unable to bear sons. You must find a girl about 27 years of age with a red birthmark near her left ear. That girl will ensure you have a male heir. Mr. Carter felt a mixture of excitement and skepticism. But where am I to find such a girl? I doubt there are any in this area. Fear not, Mr. Carter, the shaman assured him with a sinister smile. The universe will present her when the time is right. However, you must cherish and care for her, and in doing so, not only will you have a son, but your fortunes will greatly improve. As the shaman took his leave, Mr. Carter was filled with hope, showering him with money despite the man's protests that he wished only to help. Can you believe it? He remarked to Jack, this shaman didn't even want my money. It's rare to find someone unaffected by greed. Jack grinned, his thoughts hidden behind a mask of subservience. He is revered, Mr. Carter. Whatever he predicts comes true. Mr. Carter pondered this claim, a wicked smile forming on his lips. As he contemplated his future, Jack sensed the moment was right to sow a seed of doubt. Mr. Carter, he whispered, leaning closer, you're certainly not considering a woman like that while you have a loyal wife, are you? Enough. Mr. Carter barked, waving Jack off dismissively. I've been loyal to her for years. I want a son, and if this is the only way, I'll do it. No one will stop me. Over the following week, Mr. Carter was restless. He had scarcely a moment of peace until one day, while attending to business in town, he collided with a woman carrying a bundle on her shoulder. The moment their eyes met, he felt an electric jolt of recognition. She was breathtaking in her simplicity. Standing before him was a girl named Crystal, around 27 years old. Her clothes were worn and weathered, yet her beauty stood out amidst the crowd. Mr. Carter noticed, with sinister delight, the small birthmark peeking beneath her unruly hair. From deep within, a wicked plan began to form. Are you all right? He asked, suddenly cordial and protective in demeanor, as he helped her to her feet. You must be careful. What brings you to town? To his surprise, Crystal's face blanched with fear as she hurriedly explained, I'm from the mountains. I was saving up to sell goods in the market, but I was attacked. They took everything and tried to capture me. Understanding the situation, Jack stepped in front of them, brandishing a knife as he stared down the would-be attackers. The men scattered, fearful of confronting someone as deadly as Jack. Those brutes are known for their violence. They prey on anyone, including women and children. But don't worry. You're safe with us now, Jack assured her, a sinister smile creeping across his face. Thank you, kind sir. If you hadn't come along, Crystal said, tears welling in her eyes. I owe you my life. Curious and drawn to her vulnerability, Mr. Carter asked, "What is your name, my dear?" Crystal, she replied, almost shyly. I'm 27, but I've never been married. Mr. Carter couldn't suppress the glee in his heart. He had found her, the one to secure his legacy. However, Jack's anger brewed silently as he watched his master grow enamored. After all, how could Mr. Carter turn his back on his loyal wife, Granny Hattie? In the days that followed, Mr. Carter began to shift his attentions toward Crystal, leading her to his home as though she were a trophy. But Granny Hattie sensed something was painfully wrong and became increasingly uneasy. One evening, consumed by dread, she overheard Mr. Carter discussing plans to marry Crystal beneath the light of the moon. Enraged and heartbroken, she confronted him, only to be met with cold hostility. Stay out of my affairs, Hattie, he growled. She's young and will bring me the son I desire. You are nothing but a hindrance. Desperate, Granny Hattie knew she had to protect Lily from the dark cloud that had descended upon their lives. Meanwhile, Crystal was not merely a pawn, she carried secrets that could shatter Mr. Carter's ambitions. Feeling the tremors of their impending doom, Granny Hattie sought the help of local shamans and spirits to unveil the true nature of Mr. Carter's plans. As she prayed and conjured protective spells, darkness loomed heavily within the house, edging closer toward Crystal. On the day of the wedding feast, villagers gathered to celebrate. Crystal donned a beautiful dress, but a lingering unease haunted her as she sensed a malevolent shadow lurking around her future husband. As Mr. Carter appropriated banter with guests, Jack observed from the sidelines, a storm brewing in his heart, a mix of jealousy and rage. He had been faithful to Mr. Carter, yet his loyalty was crumbling beneath the weight of betrayal. Later, when Mr. Carter and Crystal were left to celebrate, the shadows of Granny Hattie's enchantments began to reveal their presence. Suddenly, Crystal's demeanor shifted, the once muted birthmark aglow as ancient forces awakened within her. You think you can hold me in this twisted web, she hissed, her voice a guttural enchantment. I am no one's pawn. Before Mr. Carter could respond, Crystal's presence transformed into something dark and ethereal. With a flicker of her wrist, the room descended into chaos, the very walls echoing with elemental chaos as the powers of fate played out before them. The villagers, sensing a foreboding presence, poured into the hall, but they found not a wedding banquet, but an encounter of desperation and turmoil. Their once beloved chieftain stood cowering as the tangible essence of power surrounded him. In that moment, Jack jumped to protect Mr. Carter, his arms ready to strike, but Crystal unleashed her true power. Jack's lifeless form crumpled to the ground, a warning to those who sought to control the winds of fate. No one can subjugate or deny the woman who bears the mark of the ancients, she declared, her voice now echoing like thunder. Granny Hattie, sensing the impending danger, rushed to the scene. She felt the air shimmer with energy, her own spirit drawn to something ancient yet sacred. With Crystal revealing her true nature, the dynamics shifted entirely, engulfing the village in a battle for the ancient legacy coursing through their veins. But in the strange and eerie clash of wills, a new story began to weave itself together, one of redemption and reclamation, the kind that would forever change the lives of those intertwined in the quagmire of greed, manipulation, and a thirst for power that only the darkness could reveal. And so it was in that haunted village, where whispers of the past echoed through the trees, leaving a lingering sense of foreboding. Not every darkness could be contained, and sometimes, the very shadows one fears holds the key to liberation. The haunting melody of the cursed valley. In a desolate hamlet named Gloomwood Hollow, shrouded in fog and ominous legends, unsettling whispers echoed in the chilling winds. The town had gained notoriety for its sinister past, and it was said that an unrest spirit roamed among the shadows, preying on unsuspecting souls. At the heart of Gloomwood Hollow stood a decrepit schoolhouse, a place where time seemed to have forgotten its charm. Within its crumbling walls, strange occurrences stirred the air, phantom laughter blended with cries of despair. This very location had become a magnet for the supernatural, enveloping those within its confines in an aura of dread. One fateful evening, a timid young man named Ethan found himself drawn to the chilling mysteries enveloping the dormitory. Soon, he began to hear the unsettling sounds of children's laughter emanating from the walls. Initially dismissing it as a figment of his imagination, dread washed over him as the voices grew sharper with each night. Realization dawned on him like a dark omen: this was no mere illusion. Echoing voices slipped from the shadows, chillingly sweet, reproducing the whispers of long-lost little ones, beckoning him closer. Ethan shivered as he recalled the tale's warning of malevolent spirits yet to accept their fate. The dormitory was not merely a building, it was a portal through which the vengeful could roam freely, unseen by the naked eye. Sank deeply into his fears, Ethan uttered with dread, "There's a ghost in this room with us." A ghostly figure, though unclear, seemed to flicker at the edges of his vision, an ephemeral specter draped in gray. His dorm mates, gripped by fear, felt the weight of Ethan's terror but dared not abandon him. Silent and distressing nights stretched on, Ethan endured this torment alone. When questioned, he revealed an unsettling decision. He intended to visit the local shrine, Whispering Grove Temple, reputed for its enigmatic monks believed to have the power to tame restless spirits. Unbeknownst to him, a darker truth loomed. A chilling tale recounted by his sister spoke of the return of vengeance, where souls, bound by undead forces, returned to wreak havoc upon their kin. Whispering Grove Temple had echoed with harrowing tales of similar encounters, its cold atmosphere a testament to the horrors once faced there. Should one seek peace, they were advised to visit Whispering Grove Temple. Yet, a foreboding energy permeated the air upon arrival, an undeniable chill that crawled under the skin and rendered limbs heavy and weak. Those who approached the temple out of a desperate longing for solace often found themselves wading deeper into misfortune. The more they attempted to banish the darkness, the more it clung to their souls. In a desperate bid to confront the living nightmare haunting him, Ethan understood he needed to interact with the phantom. To face the spirit, a connection must be forged, a mutual acknowledgement to dismiss the shadow creeping into his waking life. Accepting this grim reality, Ethan steeled himself to live amid terror, fearing that slipping away unnoticed into darkness would mean being lost to nightmares forever. Despite the murmurs circulating through Gloomwood, Ethan grappled with internal turmoil. His once cozy dorm room became a lair of dread, and sleep eluded him. Overwhelmed by fear, he confided in his friends, seeking the comfort of company during the forsaken hours. The thought of being snatched from his dreams alone terrified him. After all, who could say what awaited in the inky blackness? Relying on his comrades, Ethan found some solace. Yet everything spiraled into unforeseen chaos when he sought refuge in the bed of his steadfast friend, Lucas. That night, as Ethan's gentle breaths filled the silence, Lucas was jolted awake by an otherworldly whisper reverberating from the darkness. It crept along the walls, an indecipherable voice that seemed to bleed from the very fabric of the room. Lucas's eyes widened as he glimpsed Ethan turn towards the wall, seemingly entranced by something unseen. Confusion filled the air as Ethan muttered, "What's that?" then eerily answered himself, "A bowl and chopsticks." The questions haunted by silence kept stacking. How much longer? Followed by a chilling 49 days. Awash in paralyzing fear, Lucas hesitated to rouse his friend, yearning for clarity yet gripped by dread. At that moment, Ethan's voice, no longer his own, sounded sweet and childlike from the shadows, punctuating the silent dread, "Leave now." The soft, lulling tone sent an icy chill down Lucas's spine, a tangible malevolence weaving through the air. Heart racing, Lucas's instinct screamed at him to flee, yet every fiber of his being warned him that moving might further provoke the spirit's wrath. He lay catatonic, frozen in fear, his mind spinning with questions, while Ethan remained eerily silent. With dawn's light, Lucas wasted no time addressing Ethan, eager to uncover the truth behind the night's haunting events. Ethan, pale and distant, shrugged with uncertainty, "I don't recall. I merely slept." From that night onward, Ethan fell into a state of unsettling murmurs, often turning his back to the room in eerie solitude, his voice trailing off into obscured words unwelcome in the waking world. It wasn't long before Ethan began speaking to himself with a disquieting frequency. His friends observed with growing concern, helpless against the shadow that creeped into Ethan's psyche. Disturbingly, he began to question those around him, his gaze vacant, punctuated with panic. The divide between Ethan and the physical world widened as he grappled with the reality of his connection to the supernatural. The serenity of life he once knew collided with the horror of his reality. The sweet laughter of innocence was replaced by ghastly whispers in his mind, sowing discord in every waking moment. Desperate for resolution, Ethan resolved to confront the spirit that tormented his mind. Each night brought a new ordeal, dreams transformed into nightmares, flooding Ethan with unrelenting terror and despair. How far could a man descend before confronting the source of his fears? Time blurred as the boundary between night and day faded, merging all into one unholy realm. Glimpses of shadowy figures darted through creaking hallways, whispers of warning bidding him to turn away from the path he was treading. Ethan's sanity frayed with each encounter, compelling him deeper into Gloomwood Hollow's dark past. This wasn't simply a battle against specters in the night, it was a journey down a twisted path revealing secrets long buried and memories once vibrant, now dimmed by the haunting echoes of restive spirits unwilling to let go of their tether to this world. Within the tangled web of existence, where darkness and life intertwined, Ethan's journey illuminated the fears we can't articulate, the longings unfulfilled, and the memories that linger on the outskirts of our consciousness, ever watchful and waiting for recognition. As he fought through the encroaching beauty of death, the specter watching his every move revealed a deeply woven connection and battle fought not in the realm of sound, but a symphony echoed through the very core of existence. In the depths of Gloomwood Hollow, fate weaves an unsettling melody of the haunted that requires participation and acceptance of the phantoms lurking not just at the fringes, but within ourselves. And thus begins Ethan's harrowing journey, not just to chase specters down desolate paths but to unravel the terrors woven in the very fabric of his identity, where the most monstrous foe lies within the shadow of the self. The Haunting of Elder Moor. In the heart of the Elder Moor, nestled within a dark, winding river, stood an infamous patch of ground known as Ruins Hollow. Since the dark days of war long past, it was said that beneath every inch of soil lay the souls of fallen warriors and villagers, lost to tragic fates. Legends spoke of tortured spirits wandering amid the trees, and the townsfolk often whispered of inexplicable nightmares and ghostly apparitions. But hunger for survival soon overcame terror. The few who remained ruled their fear, erecting flimsy homes over the haunted earth. One chilling evening in December, the wind screeched through the trees, and the river swelled ominously. As shadows stretched over the secluded village, darkness crept in swiftly, shrouding it in silence. With no lanterns to light the way, the villagers deferred most activities until dawn, locking their doors against the evening apparitions. In a ramshackle home at the edge of Ruins Hollow, Elena served a meager meal on a weathered wood table, calling for her daughter, Lila, who was playing near the bank. "Lila, come inside for dinner," Elena shouted, anxiety lacing her voice as the daylight faded. Lila, still a sprightly 10, her cherubic face lit by the last rays of sun, hopped away joyfully to fetch her father, Victor, who was returning from fishing. "Daddy, Mama says it's time to eat," Lila chimed, running alongside the riverbank. As Victor secured his boat against the shore, Lila's laughter echoed through the hollow. But as her father hoisted the gear from the boat, he spotted something unusual in the murky waters. Two ghostly figures in white were playing and splashing, their laughter carrying an unsettling, hollow echo. "Lila, come back," he called, but Lila was captivated. "Look, Daddy. They want to play." Before Victor could react, there was a sudden splash. A chilling silence followed. Victor spun around, panic seizing his heart. Lila had vanished. His mind racing, Victor dove into the depths of the river, searching frantically, but the water was cold and thick with shadows. After an agonizing search, he burst forth gasping for air, eyes wide with terror, only to see Lila standing at the riverbank, drenched but unharmed. "How did you get back?" he gasped, breathless with relief. "A lady helped me," Lila exclaimed, pointing toward the water. She had long hair and a white dress. Victor froze, dread pooling in his stomach. "What lady, Lila? There's no one there." "Right there," she insisted, but when Victor looked again, all he saw was the sinister reflection of the fading twilight. "Let's go home," he urged, clutching Lila's hand tightly as they stumbled back through the darkness. During dinner, Victor sat in silent trepidation. Elena noticed her husband's pallor, concern etching deep lines on her face. "Victor, is everything all right? Did you have an unsuccessful day?" she asked. "It's nothing. Just a strange feeling after today," he mumbled, unable to shake the image of Lila's strange encounter. Days passed, and life seemed to return to normal. Or at least, what passed for normal in Eldermore. An unsettling stillness filled the air as cold nights lingered, and Victor found himself waking in the dead of night, feeling the whispers of invisible presences wrap around him. One night, deep into the witching hour, he awakened to the sensation of icy fingers brushing the nape of his neck. The hairs on his arms stood on end as he glanced towards the small chamber where Elena and Lila slept. To his horror, he found the blanket tossed aside as if someone had abruptly risen. The room was quiet, too quiet, save for the soft sound of quiet sobbing resonating through the air. Victor flung himself out of bed, heart racing. As he rushed into the other room, he was met with a sight that froze his blood. Elena lay sprawled across the bed, her eyes wide and vacant, skin grotesquely bloated as if submerged in water. Elena, he screamed, rushing to her side, but his cries went unanswered. Panic gripped him as he turned, searching for Lila, but the girl was nowhere to be found. Then, he heard it, the faint call of his daughter echoing from the river. Shadows danced along the walls, enticing him forward. Lila! Lila, where are you? He shouted, but his voice was barely above a whisper, melting into the powerful wind. Through the frigid night, he burst out of the house, following the voice that led him toward the river's edge. The moon hung low, casting ghastly shadows across the landscape, and there, in the pale light, he saw Lila standing eerily still by the water. She stared into its depths as if entranced. Lila! Come back, he shrieked, panic coursing through him. Suddenly, she turned toward him, her features distorted, eyes betraying a flicker of focus. Daddy, I want to play with the lady, she whimpered, stepping dangerously closer to the edge. No, Lila. Stay here, he shouted, reaching out to grasp her hand, but his movements felt strangely sluggish, as if time had slowed to a crawl. As he approached, a freezing fog rolled in, enveloping him and obscuring Lila from sight. Terrified, he sprinted forward, but an icy grip captured his shoulder, spinning him around to face a ghostly figure clad in white, a woman with hauntingly long hair cascading down her back. Won't you stay, Victor? She whispered, her voice a melody of despair. Let her go, he roared, struggling to free himself from her grasp. But the more he fought, the more he felt himself slipping into darkness. Victor's scream attempted to escape his lips but fell mute. The ghostly figure drew nearer, with her eyes mirroring the depths of the river, swirling with despair and rage. Then, out of nowhere, the haunting cause of crows filled the air. The sky darkened, and shadows converged, igniting old fears. The townsfolk had spoken of the cries of crows, the signs of death approaching. Gathering what little courage remained, Victor lunged forward, breaking free from the spectral embrace. In a desperate act, he dived into the water, reaching for Lila just as she was being pulled toward the abyss. Lila, please. I'm here. Come back, he screamed, tears mixing with the river's murky water. Just at that moment, as if the heavens had heard his desperate call, fog cascaded around him, and he felt Lila's hand clasp his own, the warmth grounding him against the overwhelming chill of despair. Hold on to me, Lila, he cried, pulling her from the depths of the water. But the spectral figure only watched, her gaze filled with sorrow akin to eternity. Victor swam back to the shore, Lila clutched tightly in his arms, as the whispers grew fainter, retreating into the mists. Back on the bank, Victor collapsed, clutching his daughter to his chest, relief washing over him. But as he looked up, the ghostly figure had vanished, leaving behind only the haunting echoes of laughter in the dark woods. In the days that followed, strange occurrences continued. Shadows whispered, and the villagers bore witness to Lila's odd behavior. She would speak to unseen friends, her laughter echoing with a disconcerting chill. In a meager attempt to put the horrors behind them, victors held a feast to celebrate the harvest, inviting all the townsfolk to defy the encroaching silence. The air thrummed with laughter and stories, but as the night wore on, unsettling signs began to emerge. The crows returned, their cries piercing the festivities like a warning, while the shadows loomed, growing longer with every flicker of the fire. Lila, once vibrant, grew increasingly isolated, her laughter turning to whispers as she paced outside, staring into the abyss of the woods. The townsfolk shared nervous glances, sensing a darkness rising. Panic erupted one night as Lila vanished from the gathering. Victor, heart racing, called her name, chasing after the shadow of his daughter fading toward the light of the river.